When we talk about the golden era of bodybuilding, the names that usually come to mind are Arnold Schwarzenegger, Franco Columbu, and Sergio Oliva. But today, we're shining a light on someone who left a unique mark on that generation, Chuck Sipes. He may not be the first guy you think of when it comes to the big stage, but there's no way to overlook his incredible journey. With a strong, chiseled, and perfectly symmetrical physique, he looked like he walked straight out of a comic book. But Chuck Sipes wasn't just about looks. The man was pure strength. While others were chasing muscle size, Sipes wanted more: endurance, explosiveness, balance, and above all, health. His training went way beyond the mirror. He was after a body that actually worked, that could lift heavy, take on brutal challenges, and still look amazing. What's even more impressive is that he built all of that naturally. At a time when steroids were starting to creep into the sport, Sipes stayed true to his values. He believed real greatness came from discipline, consistency, and honest hard work. And his physique proved him right. Standing at 5 feet 9 inches, 1.75 meters, and weighing around 220 pounds, 100 kilograms of solid muscle, Chuck commanded respect the moment he walked into a room. He didn't need a stage to grab attention. Just his presence was enough. His powerful build, combined with a humble and friendly attitude, won people over everywhere he went. He was admired by seasoned athletes and regular folks alike, whether or not they'd ever picked up a barbell. Unlike many bodybuilders of his time, Sipes wasn't driven by fame or trophies. He was fueled by a genuine love for bodybuilding. He trained with passion, taught with purpose, and competed as a personal challenge. That made him even more inspiring to anyone who knew his story, even if they only saw it in an old magazine. So, had you ever heard of Chuck Sipes before? Crazy to think someone this legendary could be forgotten over the years. But in this video, we're bringing his story back to life. Get ready to meet a true legend, a man who lived and breathed bodybuilding in the most authentic way, with values that never go out of style. If you love stories about athletes who went beyond the stage, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, what are you most excited to learn about in today's video? Let's dive together into the journey of one of the forgotten heroes of the golden era. Chuck Sipes was born on August 22nd, 1932 in Sterling, Illinois. Not long after, his family moved to Modesto, California, where he grew up surrounded by nature and a simple life. Even though he had an adventurous spirit, his childhood wasn't easy. His body was frail. He was skinny, weak, and clearly smaller than his classmates. That hit his confidence hard. In high school, Chuck dreamed of playing football, but when he tried out for the team, he got cut for being too physically weak. That was rough. Imagine being a kid who just wants to be part of something and getting shut down because your body wasn't enough. It hurt, but it also lit a fire inside him. He decided that was going to change. That's when a key figure stepped into his life. Chuck Coker, his neighbor, and also the school's coach. Coker saw potential in the determined kid and offered to help. Under his guidance, Sipes started lifting weights, using whatever basic, makeshift equipment he could get. At first, it was just to get stronger for football, but pretty soon, it became a full-blown passion. Bit by bit, Chuck's body started changing. The muscles kicked in, his strength skyrocketed, and most importantly, his self-confidence came alive. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was mental too. He realized that with discipline and commitment, any limit could be broken. That's when his dreams went beyond football. He started aiming way higher. That early phase didn't just shape Sipes' physique, it forged his mindset as an athlete. He learned that failure can be the best fuel for greatness. And that's why his story hits home for so many people, because it starts just like ours. A lot of folks think legendary bodybuilders were always strong, but most of them started out struggling, with doubts, with setbacks, with rejection. The difference is they didn't give up. In 1950, at age 18, Chuck Sipes took a new path and joined the U.S. Army. He was in the prime of his youth, ready to serve his country, test his limits, and become even stronger. But things didn't go as planned. During training, he suffered a serious accident that would change the course of his life. The accident left him with major head injuries. He was taken to Walter Reed Hospital, where he spent 4 long months recovering. Picture this, a young guy full of energy, stuck in a hospital bed, not knowing when or if he'd ever get back to normal. The physical pain was intense, but the mental struggle hit even harder. It took massive inner strength to pull through. But Chuck wasn't the kind of guy who gave up. When he was discharged from the hospital and left active duty in 1952, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let that accident define his life. He went back to Modesto and enrolled in the local junior college, thinking he'd give football another shot. But deep down, something had shifted. His love for lifting had already taken over. During that recovery and rebuilding phase, Chuck found weight training to be a kind of therapy. Iron didn't complain, didn't judge. It was just there, waiting to be challenged. He didn't just regain his physical strength. He pushed it to a whole new level. With every workout, every rep, he rebuilt his confidence and rediscovered who he was. That chapter in his life played a huge role in shaping the man he would become. Pain and hardship taught him resilience. What could have been the end of the road turned out to be the beginning of something much bigger. After overcoming serious injuries and rebuilding his body with sheer discipline and passion, Chuck Sipes was finally ready to step into the competitive scene. And it didn't take long for his raw talent and relentless dedication to stand out. Even as a hardcore advocate of natural bodybuilding, he hit the stage and made history, going toe-to-toe with the best of his generation. In 1958, he started gaining attention after winning the Mr. North California and placing well in contests like Mr. Pacific Coast and Junior Mr. America. But it was in 1959 that he made a major breakthrough by winning the IFBB Mr. America title, marking the start of a meteoric rise. His stage presence was unforgettable. Thick, dense muscle, rock-solid posture, and a physique that looked straight-up heroic. The following year, in 1960, Sipes took home the Mr. Universe title, securing his spot among the top bodybuilders in the world. Over the years, he kept stacking up wins, including NABBA's Mr. World in both 1967 and 1968, competing against elite athletes and standing out for his naturally aesthetic and powerful build. No steroids, just iron will, a rare thing even back then. Between 1965 and 1967, Sipes stepped up to compete in the most prestigious event in bodybuilding, Mr. Olympia. Though he never took the title, he left a strong impression, placing third in 1966 and second in 1967. He went up against legends like Larry Scott and Sergio Oliva, and even without the crown, he earned massive respect from fans and judges alike. What's truly admirable is that Sipes never compromised his values. As steroid use became more widespread, he stuck to his natural path. His philosophy was simple: discipline beats shortcuts. Many saw him as living proof that you could reach the top without sacrificing your health or your principles. At age 41, in 1973, Chuck still had fuel in the tank. He won the Mr. Pacific Coast again, proving that age was just a number. His longevity in the sport and his ability to maintain an elite physique for decades showed how far consistency and dedication could take you. He wasn't just competing, he was inspiring everyone around him. Chuck wasn't just another ripped guy on stage. He was a thinker in the world of bodybuilding. In an era where most chase size at any cost, he carved out a different path. To him, the body had to be functional, resilient, and ready for anything. Strength wasn't just a bonus, it was a priority, maybe even more important than aesthetics. His focus included speed, endurance, explosiveness, and even flexibility, traits most bodybuilders at the time didn't even talk about. Chuck believed a real athlete had to master all of those elements, not just get bigger. He trained like a warrior preparing for battle, with strategy, control, and respect for his own body. What's wild is that his training was based on intuition, on feeling out what his body needed and adapting as he went. And here's the kicker. Decades later, science ended up backing a lot of his methods. One perfect example is starting workouts with heavy weights and finishing with higher volume and reps for hypertrophy. Now one of the most recommended approaches in strength training. Sipes knew the body adapts fast, so he mixed things up with partial reps, isometric holds, pyramid sets, and shock routines. His mindset was simple: keep the body guessing. Never let it get comfortable. He was always one step ahead, even without all the modern research we have today. This mindset earned Chuck the nickname the philosopher bodybuilder. He didn't just train hard, he thought deeply about every part of the process: training, nutrition, recovery, even mindset. Chuck believed true results came from training with both your body and your mind. He was the kind of athlete who inspired people to level up in every part of life. That's why his influence goes far beyond the gym. He wasn't just a master of bodybuilding. He was a master of discipline and self-control. Chuck was never satisfied with average. His workouts were tough, intense, and often way outside the norm for his time. While most guys stuck to simple routines, like 3 sets of 10, he was inventing full-on physical and mental challenges. That's where his innovative techniques came from, designed to shock the muscles and bust through plateaus. One of his most brutal methods was the 4-21-16-4, especially for biceps. It combined heavy cheat curls with low reps and the legendary 21s, which break the curl into 3 parts: lower half, upper half, and full reps. It was arm day hell, but the pump was unreal and the growth was legit. Another favorite was the 1-10-10-1 method, perfect for bodyweight moves like pull-ups and dips. It sounds simple: climb from 1 to 10 reps, then back down to 1. Easy, right? Try it with minimal rest between sets. It's a total test of endurance and mental toughness. Chuck used this as a finisher to push his body to the absolute limit. Then there was the tonnage system. Here, Chuck would calculate the total weight lifted in a workout, reps times load, and aim to beat that number every session. It was a super objective way to track progress, even with small increases. It turned training into a numbers game and kept motivation sky high. His double pyramid system, often used for bench press, followed this sequence: 8-8-4-4-2-1-1. Start with higher reps and taper down to an all-out single. It helped him build raw strength without sacrificing training volume for hypertrophy. Pretty genius for the time. Sipes also swore by support holds, like locking out a bench press and holding at the top for up to 20 seconds. He said if you could hold it longer than that, it was time to increase the weight. These moves not only boosted strength, but also trained mental confidence under serious loads. And we can't forget his legendary custom wrist curls, one of the secrets behind his freakish 18-inch, 45 centimeters forearms. He'd rest the dumbbell on his knee, lean forward, and curl with his thumb wrapped inside the grip for deep contraction. A tiny adjustment that made a massive difference. So, which of these methods would you be bold enough to try? Despite global fame and a trophy-packed resume, Chuck Sipes never got caught up in the spotlight. While many champs trained in high-end gyms with fancy equipment, he chose a humbler path: his temple, his own backyard. With just the basics, he built one of the most respected physiques in the history of natural bodybuilding. His training setup was raw: a homemade squat rack, a wooden bench, and scrap metal weight from the junkyard. No machines, no AC, no luxuries. Just sweat, discipline, and results. And honestly, maybe that's exactly what made his workouts so effective: the straight-up connection between effort and outcome. Chuck believed it wasn't the equipment that made the difference, it was your commitment. His workouts were packed with long sets, supersets, and high volume. He blended raw power with muscular endurance to build a physique that was balanced, powerful, and functional. No loud music, no selfies, no distractions, just real training. Working out at home also helped him build a deeper relationship with the process. With no outside pressure, he could actually listen to his body and adapt each session. His style was instinctive. If he felt strong that day, he'd go heavy. If he didn't, he'd focus on volume and precision. That kind of self-awareness was part of his secret sauce. Even with limited gear, Sipes found ways to push his limits every single day. He loved proving that progress doesn't depend on where you train, but how hard you train. That message still hits hard today. How many people give up because there's no good gym nearby, when in reality, the basics are more than enough? So what about you? Have you ever used a lack of equipment as an excuse? Ever thought about setting up a small home gym and starting with what you've got? Chuck is living proof that you don't need much to achieve greatness. It's the daily grind, not expensive gear, that builds a real champion. Chuck knew that building and maintaining an impressive physique took more than just lifting heavy. It required fueling the body with quality food consistently. His diet reflected the mindset of the golden era. Eat well, eat clean, and eat a lot. No crazy diets or extreme restrictions. The foundation was real food in the right amount to grow. His days were split into several nutrient-rich meals. Breakfast alone was a feast. Whole wheat bread with honey, cereal with milk, eggs, cheese, fruit, and even almonds. It was a legit morning banquet designed to power his intense training sessions. For Chuck, nutrition and flavor went hand in hand. Throughout the day, he'd snack on things like whole grain peanut butter sandwiches, salads, seeds, fresh juices, and milk. Dinner usually included lean meats like fish or steak, brown rice, fresh veggies, and even treats like homemade ice cream or Ovaltine with banana. He ate well, but always with balance and purpose. Chuck didn't chase food trends. His focus was simple: give the body the right building blocks to grow strong, functional muscle. Protein, fiber, healthy fats, and complex carbs were his everyday staples. No crazy supplement stacks or magic pills, just real nutrition that worked. One fun detail: he included foods like honey, sunflower seeds, molasses, and homemade desserts in his routine. Proof that a diet can be both nutritious and enjoyable. Chuck believed eating should support your well-being. He did it mindfully without going overboard, but also without guilt. So how's your diet these days? Are you feeding your body what it needs, or just trying to get by between workouts? Drop a comment. What part of Chuck's eating style surprised you the most? After achieving everything he could in bodybuilding, Chuck Sipes decided to give his life a new meaning. He could have stayed in the spotlight, coaching elite athletes or living off his fame. Instead, he chose a quieter, more meaningful path. Away from the stage, Chuck dove into two passions: art and helping others. His legacy went beyond muscle. It touched lives. Sipes began painting landscapes inspired by 19th century mountaineers. His canvases reflected his deep connection to nature and his adventurous soul. The same mountains that once tested his physical limits now inspired calm, beautiful works of art. It was like he took all that inner strength and turned it into something peaceful and profound. But it was in social work that he found his true mission. For 20 years, he partnered with the California Youth Authority and Stockton's education system. His goal? To help at-risk teens. Young people who, like he once was, just needed direction, support, and someone who believed in them. Chuck organized retreats in the mountains where he took these teens to learn life lessons by living them. They camped, hiked, cooked together, and took on team challenges. Far from the city and its distractions, they learned about resilience, teamwork, responsibility, and personal growth. These were workouts for the soul. He didn't just want to build bodies, he wanted to build character. Many of the kids who went through his programs came back changed. Some found purpose, others turned away from crime, and many saw Chuck as a father figure who truly made a difference in their lives. It's powerful to see how someone who once ruled the stage used that strength to lift others up. Chuck believed real greatness comes from service, and he lived that belief every day. What about you? Have you ever thought about how you could use what you know to impact someone else's life? Sometimes, one small act can completely change someone's path. Even with a life full of triumph, resilience, and generosity, Chuck Sipes faced tough times in silence. As the years went on, physical problems began to limit the one thing he loved most: being active outdoors. Without the ability to hike through the mountains or lead youth retreats, a big part of who he was started to fade. These limitations took a heavy toll on Chuck emotionally. His connection with nature was a vital source of balance, and losing that was a hard hit. Little by little, he began battling depression, a silent and often invisible struggle. Even someone as strong, disciplined, and admired as Chuck was still human. with real pain and vulnerabilities. Sadly, on February 24th, 1993, Chuck Sipes took his own life at the age of 60. It was a heartbreaking loss that left a deep void in everyone who had known him or been inspired by his journey. The news shocked the bodybuilding world, as most people had no idea about the internal battles he was facing. It's a powerful reminder that mental health always matters, no exceptions. But Chuck's story doesn't end with his death. In many ways, it's just the beginning of his lasting impact. His training methods are still studied today. His philosophy of natural bodybuilding continues to inspire new generations. And his work with youth is remembered fondly by those whose lives he helped shape. He left more than just muscle. He left a mission. He became a symbol of strength without ego, discipline without arrogance, and service to others without expecting anything in return. In an era where bodybuilding is often tied to vanity, Chuck showed us that you can be massive on the outside and the inside. He deserves to be remembered not just as an athlete, but as a true hero of the sport. Chuck Sipes is the kind of figure who transcends bodybuilding. He wasn't just a standout competitor. He was living proof that you can build greatness without losing your integrity. In a world full of shortcuts and inflated egos, he reminded us that consistency, humility, and discipline are still the most solid foundations for success. His story holds lessons that go way beyond workouts and trophies. He overcame rejection, survived a serious accident, rose to the top, and later dedicated his life to helping others. And he did all of that without ever losing who he was. Sipes proved that muscles might impress, but character is what truly inspires. In a time when faster and easier are so tempting, Chuck reminds us that the hardest path is often the most meaningful. His methods demanded real effort. His life took real courage, and his mission required a heart willing to serve. He didn't just follow the world. He carved out his own path with the tools he had. That's why, even decades after his passing, he's still remembered as a giant. His training continues to influence athletes. His actions continue to set the bar. And even without much media spotlight, his memory lives on in the hearts of those who value what truly matters in bodybuilding, the soul of the athlete. If you made it this far, it's because something about Chuck Sipes' story touched you. And maybe now you see bodybuilding in a different light. Not just as an aesthetic pursuit, but as a lifestyle that demands purpose, commitment, and honesty. Because in the end, it's not just about how much you lift, it's about who you become in the process. Now I want to hear from you. Had you ever heard of Chuck Sipes before? What part of his journey stood out to you the most? Do you think he deserves more recognition in the world of bodybuilding? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. Share this with a friend who loves classic, no BS bodybuilding, because the best way to keep someone like Chuck Sipes alive is to keep telling his story.